Hello, and welcome to the Badhumanist look at the Affliction Warlock. So today I'm going to be talking about the Aff Lock here in the BfA beta. As always, I'm going to start with the passive and the abilities, kind of defining the core toolkit of this spec. From that, I will move on to talking about the talents, what the talents add, any synergies that might be existent across them, how they feel, how they look. After that, I'll talk about stats, my thought on how the stats interact. I will not be giving a stat priority because we have no idea because damage is not finalized, but I will give a sense about what stats might be good, what stats might be bad, and basically how they interact with the overall spec. At the end, I'm going to summarize with a overall thought, overall approach to this spec, what I think, my hopes for the future, what I hope they change, what I hope ends up being the talent set, because some are definitely more fun than others, but we can get to that in a bit. So first, let's look at our base toolkit here with our abilities. So we have soul shards. Soul shards are generated by some of your spells you cast and consume to cast most powerful spells. So while out of combat, you generate up to 3 soul shards, as you can see here. Right, I have a weak ore for it as well. So Soul Leaf is a passive. All single target damage done by you and your minions grant you and your pet shadowy shields that absorb 8% of the damage dealt up to a 15% maximum health. I believe I actually have a talent that modifies this right now currently, but that's Soul Leech. The mastery here, again, is increases your damage of Agony, Corruption, Unstable Affliction, and Seeds of Corruption by X%, so all your dots. Our first ability here is UA, Unstable Affliction. It costs 1 Soul Shard. It's a 1.3 second cast. Afflicts the target with X shadow damage over 8 seconds. You may afflict the target with up to 5 UAs at once, so you can stack them up. You deal 10% increased damage to targets afflicted by your Unstable Affliction, or again, affected by your Unstable Affliction. If dispelled, it deals damage to the speller and silences them. On any resolve, hardens your skin, reduces all damage you take by 40%, and grants immunity to interrupt and silence for 8 seconds. Nice, strong 3-minute cooldown. Defensive, again, that ability also, as a defensive, is of course off the GCD. That's what it looks like. Looks pretty cool. Unending Breath, instant, allows you an ally to breathe underwater. Not too worried about that. Summon Demon. Summon one of your demons. So, demons, you have 4. You can choose from Imp, Voidwalker, Fell Hunter, and Succubus. They all have different command demon abilities. So, for example, if I pull the Imp out here, you will see that my command demon ability is Singe Magic, right? Burns harmful spells, removing 1 harmful effect from an ally. It auto-casts upon the master when he is unable to cast spells. So if you get to a point where you can't cast spells to have a silence effect on you, it will remove it for you. It also just shoots fireballs that do damage to a target. If I pull out the Voidwalker here, you will see that my things change. I should have also mentioned the Imp has the Dark Pack, which increases your and the Imp's health pool. So again, here the Voidwalker has a basic attack that drains health from nearby enemies. Suffering, which is the special ability, the demon command ability. It taunts the target to attack for 5 seconds, increased threat. Taunts automatically on the target. Here we have Shadow Bulwark. This actually, is the command demon ability, not the special. This is a temporary increase of current and maximum health by 30% for 20 seconds, so it gives you a 2-minute defensive cooldown. If I pull out the Fell Hunter here now, its basic attack is just a bite attack. It has a Spell Lock, which is the command demon ability. It counters the enemy spellcast, preventing any spell from that school of magic from being cast. Its special is it can purge a magic effect from an enemy, and again, it will be healing and give the Fell Hunter energy when done so. The Succubus is the last one here. Again, it has the basic attack of Lash of Pain, just does shadow damage. Whiplash is a special. It whips the enemy, reducing movement speed for 10 seconds on a 6-second cooldown. Its special, again, makes it invisible for 5 seconds, not usable in combat. Its command demon ability is Seduction. Seduces the target, disorienting for 30 seconds. Damage will break the effect, only usable against humanoids. So the important thing for this command demon ability is, we'll talk about it later on in the talents, but there's a talent that allows you to sacrifice your demon, and you'll still keep that ability. So you lose the other effects, but you do gain this. So the pet you have out when you sacrifice kind of gives you a different sense. If you want a defensive, you get a defensive. If you want a silence, you get a silence, so on and so forth. Let's get back to this. Summon Dark Lair is the main 3-minute cooldown. Interesting cooldown here. So it summons a Dark Lair from the Twisting Nether that extends the duration of your dots by 8 seconds. And it'll also be up for 20 seconds, blasting its target for damage that is increased for every dot you have on the target. And that includes each UA you have up. So if you have 5 stacks of UA and you have other dots, it does even more damage. So that's one kind of synergy thing that's going to play out here, is you want to pull this out when you have all these dots running, because not only will it extend all of them for 8 seconds, so again, if you can get a lot of UAs out, that's great, but again, it will also extend the duration and do more damage itself. Soulstone, still there. Shadow Fury stuns all enemies within 8 yards for 3 seconds, 45-second cooldown. So again, you have a little reticle, put it down, cast, boom, stun. As you can see, I get my Command Demon ability, which again, in this case, because I have the Void Walker out, is the Shadow Bulwark. Shadow Bolt is your main filler, so it sends a Shadowy Bolt at the enemy, causing X shadow damage. Again, they've gotten rid of the... You can heal yourself as part of your filler, so again, that's separated out to a different ability, which we'll see here in a second. Seeds of Corruption is still here, costs 1 Soul Shard, 2.2 second cast, so again, embeds a Demon Seed in the enemy that will explode after 10.4 seconds, dealing a bunch of shadow damage. It will also detonate early if the target is hit by another detonation, or if it takes X amount of damage from your spells. So again, you can still kind of cast these out on multiple targets, and again, you'll still get them all exploding. There's a lot of good AoE. So again, I will show that over here. So again, you can get it kind of like rolling. I have a talent that's getting me 2 of them for each, and then if I just bolt one of these, they all explode and get corruption on all those targets. Now again, I have other talents that are giving me other things, but you get the point. Ritual Summoning is still here. Health Funnel, sacrifice 20% of your maximum health to heal your summoned demon for twice as much. Fear, still here, 1.5 second cast. I have Kilrog still here. Enslaved Demon still here. Don't know if that level 57 is correct or not, but it's still there. Drain Life, so again, this has been separated out as part of your filler. So again, it drains life, causing only a little bit of shadow damage, but it heals you for 500%. So again, the healing amount is about the same as you would have imagined before, but its damage is way lower. So no longer can your filler be a amazing self-heal, making Warlocks better tanks than tanks. Demonic Gateway, again, still here as well. Soulwell, still here. Healthstone. Corruption, so corrupts the target, causing X shadow damage over 14 seconds, which is one of our dots. Banish, still here. Agony is our Soul Shard builder, so it inflicts agony on the target, causing up to X amount of shadow damage over 18 seconds. Again, this stacks. It has 10 stacks in its base form, so again, every time it deals damage, it stacks to the 10. If you refresh it, it keeps that stack number. So basically, you'll apply it the first time, it'll tick up a bunch, you'll refresh it, you'll get the 10 stacks, and you should ideally keep refreshing it so that it doesn't fall off and you don't have to rebuild those stacks. So you always want to hit agony, refresh it a bit before it obviously runs out. So here's the core set, right? This is basically what you're dealing with. You have UA, you have Corruption, and you have Agony as your dots, and you have Shadow Bolt as your filler, with Summon Dark Lair as your main cooldown. So in the base set, it definitely, I think, feels like you need a bit more, which luckily the talents definitely do give you. So again, right now I currently have all passives, but again, I'll be switching this up here in a second. 15 row, Shadow Embrace, Shadow Bolt applies Shadow Embrace, increasing your damage dealt to the target by 3% for 10 seconds, stacked to 3 times. You actually saw this before when I had that free proccing Shadow Bolt before. So basically, when you're you get this ability to kind of reset. Actually, I take that back. That was Nightfall. But Shadow Embrace, again, you still saw it stacked before. So you see that this stacking buff on one target. So anytime you Shadow Bolt a target, you get this stack. It's stacked 3 times. So for a total of 9% in 10 seconds. So eventually you'll kind of get it up there and keep it rolling. So you'll just basically have a 9% on a single target damage for as long as you want. So again, the idea here is to help increase your single target damage, single target ability, while not affecting your overall AoE. Haunt, it does a similar thing, but in a different way. So a ghostly soul haunts the target, dealing X shadow damage and increasing your damage dealt to the target by 10% for 15 seconds. Now, this does not count as a dot. I repeat, this does not count as a dot. It is just a single damage ability that keeps a debuff basically on the target, increasing your damage by 10%. So this would not be increased or count for the summon Dark Glare. Now, it gives you 10%, which obviously is a higher percentage increased damage than Shadow Embrace, but because its cooldown is 15 seconds, it will have some downtime. You're going to have to refresh it. And so this basically being able to be kept up on its own, these two basically are going to even out as far as the damage increase. The problem is Haunt does a little bit of damage on its own. So I found that Haunt ended up being a little bit better than Shadow's Embrace. But again, the idea here, I think, would be that they would be balanced. It's basically, do you want to have Haunt or do you want to have Shadow's Embrace? Again, if the target dies, Haunt's cooldown is reset, which is nice. You can put Haunt on different targets as you switch to them. We'll have to see with balancing which one ends up, of course, working out. Haunt, however, does require more maintenance for sure. The last talent here is Death Bolt. So it launches a bolt of death at the target, dealing 30% of the total remaining damage of your damage over time effects on the target. What this means is it's an instant ability, which is nice. It used to be a cast, it's now instant. When you launch this ability, it kind of snapshots the remaining amount of damage you have left on all of your dots. That includes every single UA you have up, plus any other dot you might have, which would include Siphon Life, which again we'll talk about on the next row. So your idea here is to get all your dots up. You can even then extend their duration with Summon Dark Glare. Again, it basically extends the duration for another 8 seconds, and then you can every 30-second Death Bolt, and it does a lot of damage. Alright, I'll actually show you here in a little bit. I've done some damage testing, and when it hits for a lot. It hits like a truck. 30 row, this is all basically increasing dot type damage here. So we have Writhe and Agony. So basically Agony can now stack up to 15 instead of 10. It basically increases Agony's damage by about 50%. Again, it's nice, it's passive, it's built in, not an Agony, and again, it just will get the 15 stacks and you would keep it there. Absolute Corruption, so Corruption is now permanent, so again, you never need to refresh Corruption once it's on the target, and the Corruption itself deals a 50% increased damage. Now on targets, it's only going to be 24-second duration, but against anything else, it's forever. Right, it's on the target until it dies, which kind of sucks for training dummies because training dummies don't die. So if you put Corruption on a training dummy, it just stays there until you either get rid of the talent or log out. So that talent sucks to test. Siphon Life is the last one here. So it siphons the target's life essence, dealing X shadow damage over 15 seconds and healing you. So these two basically buff one of your two dots. This gives you a new dot. Now, that new dot does count as a dot for Dark Glare, and it does count, as I mentioned, as a dot for Death Bolt. So both of these two things benefit from having Siphon Life, and I've just happened to find that the increased damage Siphon Life does is a little bit better than the increased damage of these two other dots. So again, increasing Corruption by 50%, or again, increasing Agony by 50%, basically evens out, or if you're a little bit behind, the extra damage you just get from Siphon Life on its own. And again, this also has that passive healing, which is quite nice as well. So the synergy with things like Death Bolt, synergy with things like Dark Glare, I think are going to make Siphon Life a very, very good talent. If you don't want to worry about that management of another dot, which is definitely understandable, you have the other two options, and currently they're relatively evenly balanced. 45, Demon Skin, Soul Leech Absorb now passively recharges at a rate of 0.5% of maximum health every 1 second, and may absorb up to 15% maximum health. So again, just isn't buffing your Soul Leech ability here. Burning Rush is still here. This is a movement increase. It works just like it does on live. It does damage to you, but increases your movement speed. You can toggle it on or off. And then Dark Pack, minute cooldown. You sacrifice some of your health through a shield that shields you for 20 seconds. That's quite nice as well. I do think it's interesting, however, that you basically have a thing that passively increases your healing from Soul Leech, a movement speed, and then like a shield. So they're very different types of utility in this row, which I think is interesting. On fights where you don't need the movement, take another one. If you need the movement, take this. So I do think it's kind of an interesting combination of talents on this row. 60 is all about AoE. So we have, so the seeds that you saw this earlier, so Seed of Corruption now embeds a demon seed into one additional nearby enemy. So when you use Seed of Corruption, you actually get 2 seeds out with 1 cast. Next we have Phantom Singularity. I'll show this off here. So you basically have a target, and then you hit it, and it's kind of hard to see here, but basically anything in the 15-yard range would be getting damaged by it, and you can kind of see its damage ticking over here. Now again, this also heals you for 25% of the damage done. So on a 4-second cooldown, it does slightly less damage than Vile Taunt does, but again, it does give you the healing, which this does not. So again, it's kind of a choice thing of what you want. When my cooldown is up, I will show you Vile Taint. Again, this is a cast. It does cost a Soul Shard, whereas Phantom Singularity does not. And it's a pool under the target, dealing a bunch of shadow damage over 10 seconds, and reduces their movement speed by 30%. And again, it's a 15-second cooldown. So for AoE, this is definitely, again, going to be kind of competing with the Seeds for your Soul Shards. Alright, so let me show you that. Alright. So again, you have a target, you cast, and then boom, you get all that damage, and then it just ticks around them. 75 row, you have Dark Fury, just reduces the cooldown on Shadow Fury. Again, that is the AoE stun, castable AoE stun. You have Mortal Coil, that horrifies an enemy target into fleeing, incapacitating it for 3 seconds, and heals you, 4-second cooldown. And then you have Demonic Circle, which again now has 2 buttons, which is quite nice. So you put down your circle, and then you can go run away, and you have a separate button now to kind of teleport to it. Boom, and you teleport back. So that's nice. Again, it's kind of interesting. You have like a movement. You have a Horrify, Stun, Heal, and you have a reduction on an AoE stun. So again, you kind of get choices here as far as what utility you want to bring, which I kind of like. I like the fact that you have different kind of utility in these 2 rows. A lot of other classes I've looked at, it's basically different flavors of the same idea. This is very different. You get kind of getting a movement thing with like a horror and heal with a just reduction on an ability you already have. So that's a very interesting and unique kind of row there. 90 row, Corruption damage has a chance to cause your next Shadow Bolt to be instant and deal 24% increased damage. Now this is what I was referring to actually earlier that you saw, where when I put the Seed of Corruption out and it caused the corruption then procced this free Shadow Bolt. So Shadow Bolt does more damage. You also get a free one, so that again makes it so it doesn't have the cast time on it anymore. This is also going to have some synergy with Shadow Embrace, helping you keep it up, right, in that regard, build up stacks. The other option here is Drain Soul. So again, I will show you that. Now, Drain Soul actually replaces your builder here, and it just drains energy over time. Now, the damage is increased by 100% when targets are below 20% health. And again, it just looks like this, and it's a channel. Now, with the current scaling, it does less DPS than Shadow Bolt. So again, it does less DPS than Shadow Bolt. Now, when you get below 20% health, it does a lot more. So it's one of those things where we'll have to find out if the trade-off works. The fact that it's a channel, you can always, of course, end the channel early, so there's some parts of it that are kind of a bit nicer than the cast ability, where when you're channeling it, you can get some damage out of it when you're kind of squeezing into some dot windows. Again, we'll have to kind of wait and see the viability of this. The other talent is Grimoire Sacrifice. So this is where you're going to sacrifice your demon. So again, you can see here I have my Voidwalker out. I sacrifice it, it goes away. I gain the ability to sometimes deal additional shadow damage, as well as I keep the Command Demon ability. So whatever the Command Demon ability was of the pet that I had out, I get to keep that. So in this case, I get to keep this, increasing my current maximum health by 30%. Quite nice. I have found right now with current tuning, this talent is doing the most DPS, but again, tuning is not final, so we don't know if that's going to be the same way when it makes it to live. But not only is this nice because you don't have to worry about your pet AI and your pet doing crap, but it does more damage than your pet would do anyway. So I find it quite nice, and you still get to keep the ability of your pets, so you get to kind of choose what ability you want. 100 row. First one here is Soul Conduit. So every soul shard you spend has a 50% chance to be refunded. Basically, you will spend it and then it comes back to you. So it's not like it's free. You actually spend it and then it comes back. This is just giving you more soul shards. It allows you to get more stacks of agony up. It allows you to get of UA up. Yeah, that's basically what it does. Now, I on live play a priest, and as a healer, I hate random effects. And even on DPS, I think that this type of random effect doesn't feel good. And what I mean by that is this. So, for example, take Nightfall, for example. This is a random chance to give yourself a free Shadow Bolt. This actually feels fine, right? It procs, you get that free ability, you can use it, it's reactionary, it's fine. This, because of the way that some of your abilities use soul shards, and so for example, the case that I ran into was, I ideally want to get as many UAs out as possible before I summon my Dark Glare. Well, I can't summon the Dark Glare without a soul shard, so I need to have one. So I might summon, and then if that gets refunded, I can then put another UA up. But I would have rather had that UA up already to kind of extend the duration of it. Because ideally you want all your dots out, and then you summon to extend their durations. So it just felt bad to kind of like be risking and rolling the dice. Okay, I have one soul shard, let me try to get a UA out and hope that it refunds. If it doesn't, I'm screwed, because I can't then summon my Dark Glare and have to wait and kind of reset. So I just found that in general, while this can sometimes be nice, and again, as far as the Sims go for DPS, this could be the best talent, who knows. But I personally don't like it. I found that it was frustrating because you can't count on it. Maybe if they increased the percent so it's a bit more frequent, it would be nice. Again, I would rather it be something like it was just free in a sense and have to spend it and it come back. I don't know. I just felt it to not be what I wanted. It felt bad when I made a mistake with it. And so I basically had to ignore it, like it didn't exist, and just if I got a free shard back, take advantage of it. Which, for this specific spec and the way that it plays, didn't work out as nice. The next talent we have here is Creeping Death. So basically your Agony, Corruption, Siphon Life, and Unstable Affliction. So again, even if you took this as well, which I'm going to take now, it basically makes them deal their full damage faster. Now, what that means is the damage per tick is the same. So the damage doesn't change. And so again, you can see this on, for example, on UA. 2328 is the amount over 8 seconds. When I take this, it changed to 2328, but now over 6.8 seconds. What that means is the DPS of the ability goes up, right, damage over time, but the damage per execute, so DPET, stays the same. It does the same amount of damage for every time you click it, it just does its damage faster. So it is a DPS increase, but again, as far as increasing the damage when you hit it, doesn't work that way. Whereas if you increase your haste, like the next talent's going to do, it does actually increase both the DPS and the damage per execute time of those abilities. I found this to be rough. I don't know if I'm just getting old or something. I'm not that old, but I just found that with this talent, because you're refreshing these abilities so quickly, right? And not only that, but I found that because we have to remember about Pandemic, and you're going to see this with my weak auras here in a little bit, but the Pandemic is always 1/3 of the total duration. So for example, when, let's say Agony, for example, has an 18-second duration, if you use the ability under 6 seconds, you get that extra duration. So instead of being 18 seconds, let's say there was 5 seconds left, it would be 23 seconds. So you don't lose any damage by refreshing it in that Pandemic window. This makes the window smaller. The whole nice thing about having all these dots with Pandemics is you have some flexibility about when to refresh them and you don't lose any damage. With a shorter window, now at 15 seconds, instead of having, again, 6 seconds, I only have 5 seconds. And it gets even worse with something like Corruption. Because Corruption, originally, I believe, again, is like a 14-second dot, so its Pandemic window is only 3.5 seconds. Now it's 12, and so now it goes down as far as 3 seconds. So again, you just have less time to react. And it might seem like a second, half a second here or there, but trust me, when you're trying to juggle this many dots, it can become a problem. So again, it might do more DPS, but the fact that it doesn't actually increase the damage of the ability, it just happens faster, so you're refreshing it faster, didn't feel good. It basically means less Shadow Bolts and more damage in your dots, but I didn't like how it felt. The last talent we have here is Dark Soul Misery. This is a 2-second cooldown, and it basically gives you 30% haste for 20 seconds. This felt the best. I don't know DPS-wise if it's the best. Either talent could be better. But just having that ability to choose when you want the haste, and it lasts for a while. 20 seconds is a good amount of time, right? It's a 20 second out of 2 minutes. That's a 1/6 uptime. So again, that would be like a 16 or so percent uptime. It's pretty decent. And haste makes this spec feel good because, again, the faster your agonies tick, the more soul shards you get. That is a benefit of Creeping Death as well, is that agony will tick faster. The difference here is that you're getting more ticks. You're refreshing it still at the same rate. It's still over 18 seconds, just the damage goes up. So again, when you hit this, you'll see the damage goes up. It's now 3103 for that. This goes up as well, but the duration stays the same, which is quite nice. So I'm going to have to wait for that to come off cooldown before I do my rotation. But yes, I felt that Dark Soul Misery felt really good. Haste makes the spec feel better. You're casting faster, your damage is more, but it doesn't make it more hectic. I found that Creeping Death increased the hecticness of the rotation, which, let me tell you, there's already enough hecticness to begin with. So for me, I would go with something like this. Now again, I'm not going to worry too much about AoE talents right now. I can say that Affliction's AoE damage is quite respectable, but I would probably go with something, probably like this actually. Again, you can of course choose this talent based on what you want. Siphon Life though is what I would probably go with here. The extra dot's nice, the passive healing is nice, and again, it's competitive damage with these two. If the damage of this was less, it might be less competitive with one of these two. But again, the fact that it works so well with your Summon Dark Glare and your Death Bolt make it a pretty easy thing to take. Now, I played a lot with both Haunt and Death Bolt, and Haunt's good, right? It's another dot, it's no problem, it's not dot, it's another thing to keep up, another thing to kind of monitor or juggle, if you will. But I just like Death Bolt, and you'll see why in a second here. When you see the damage that Death Bolt does, it's quite rewarding. And the fact that it's instant makes it, again, feel really, really good here. Alright, so let me get my demon out to sacrifice. It does seem like whenever you change talents that buff goes away, so I've sometimes forgot to do that. Alright, so get my Grimoire sacrifice up there. Alright. Wait till this comes off cooldown, and then I'm going to do a little bit of some rotation here. Alright. So get that going, get my dots up. Extend them all, get some of these going in there, and then this is what I would Death Bolt, so let me do that. Again, I would have Death Bolted immediately after putting all those up. Keeping my dots rolling. Now, one thing I did find was you really want to keep UA up as much as possible. So outside of that window when you're trying to get the Death Bolt and Glare up, I did find that you ideally want to kind of keep the Soul Shard so you can keep the uptime on UA higher. And again, I'm not obviously doing that right now really well, but that's the idea. So I would basically keep one Soul Shard, refreshing when I could. And again, if I ever got, because of a nice proc, something like 2 Soul Shards, I would immediately use a second UA to kind of stack up on that. So let me get the UA up, let me refresh Corruption, and then I can Death Bolt again. But you'll see that the damage is pretty decent actually for Affliction here. Again, you can see my weak aura when the bars turn yellow, that's the pandemic time. So I'm basically just kind of watching those to try to refresh. Get another UA up. So again, by no means is this perfect, but you get the basic idea here. You're keeping your dots up, you're shadow bolting to kind of fill, and then every 30 seconds you're trying to get as many dots up as possible, and then Death Bolt while the duration is high to get a bunch of damage out on that ability. And that's the basic idea. I'm gonna use my cooldown again. Keep UA up. Keep that up. Now, this is the first spec that I found that I really felt as if I needed these weak auras. I've been trying to not have to make weak auras. I will admit I'm a big weak aura fan and advocate in general. I know some people don't like them. I'm a huge fan of them, and I find that they do help. And for me, I did find that when I added the weak auras in, my DPS was going up. Again, just being able to track all these dots and keep them up was a necessity, as well as a better tracking of my soul shards as well. But yeah, so this is the basic idea here. You can see that my Summon Dark Layer is about to come off again. So again, I'm going to try to keep my dots up. Get these out. Now ideally, I would be, at this point in time, kind of like banking away. As you can see, I'm not refreshing UA in the case here. Because again, I want to basically bank away some soul shards if possible. So that when it's off, I can get as many of these out as possible. Right, and then do that to help extend. So that's one thing, again, I didn't quite do that here, but that's probably what you'd want to be doing is, with about 30 seconds left if possible, try to get a couple stacks, 2 or 3 stacks of soul shards available for you, and then be able to get a bunch of them out at one time, and use that to kind of empower up that little ad dude. Alright, so I'll let these fall off, and I'll show you my damage meters for this. I gotta wait for my dots to finish ticking. But that's the idea, right? You have your dots, you kind of keep them up, refresh them when you're in pandemic window, sorry. Try your best to keep UA up as much as possible. I did find that when I had higher uptime, I had higher DPS. There definitely seemed to be a correlation. But here we go. So here's Deathbolt, right? I only got 6 casts, and I probably should have got more out than that. I need something to track that as well. But the average hit was 12,000. 12,000. That's a lot of damage for a single ability. Crits were 18.5. So again, really, really good. I had a max of over 21. Again, right now, I'm only at 110. But again, this damage would scale as I level up as well. I got 26,000 health. That's almost like a one-shot right there with a critting Deathbolt. So very, very strong, very hard-hitting ability. Feels good. I like the kind of the gameplay of, okay, let me get my dots up and use the ability. It's definitely more plate management, and again, if you're not a big fan of that, Haunt would be a better option. You basically just cast it when the cooldown comes off, and it just does passive increase of your damage. I did find, however, that Deathbolt's DPS was very competitive, not a little bit better. So here's your breakdown. Okay, we kind of move this into the middle here for us. So UA, again, was the most damage. You can see Grimoire was second. So again, my Grimoire does a lot of damage here. And again, this is just extra proccing off of all your damage, right? Anytime you do damage, it has a chance to deal additional shadow damage, which is the Grimoire. Shadow Bolt, Corruption, Agony, Siphon Life. Now, if you look at my aura uptimes, Siphon Life, again, your goal here, of course, is to keep uptime as much as possible. So you can see my UA uptime was 93%. Now, I only got as much as 3 stacks. If I got 5, you would actually see 5 UAs. So I had a 22% uptime on 2 stacks, 7% uptime on 3 stacks, and if I had more, you get the idea there. Ideally, you want to keep your dots as high as possible, right? There's no reason for them to not be up in the high 90s, so again, I could have done better with Corruption. I did well with Agony. I did both Siphon Life. Having at least 1 stack of UA up is very important, so again, that 93% uptime is quite good. When I got lower than this, I found that my DPS did decrease. But yeah, so you can kind of see, 15% for Dark Soul. Like I said, about 16% should be what you should be averaging if you're using it on cooldown. So yeah, that is the basic rotation and basic gameplay with this stop. Now again, if you took Haunt instead of Deathbolt, all that would basically change is instead of Deathbolting every 30 seconds and kind of lining up your dots, you're just Haunting off cooldown. When that goes off cooldown, you use it again, and you're passively doing more damage. Shadow Embrace, again, has the least amount of management. Basically, your just rotation will keep that up. You'll be getting enough Shadow Bolts out to kind of keep that up at all times. These two, again, simplify the gameplay. Again, it gives rid of Siphon Life as a dot, and this makes you never have to Corruption again. It's always up, which is great. Wrath of Agony, again, increases the damage of that, so that just removes the Siphon Life. in this row here, again, Nightfall adds a layer of complexity in the sense that you have those procs. Drain Soul would operate the same way as Shadow Bolt. It's just basically whenever you would Shadow Bolt, you're now just channeling. Soul Conduit, again, you don't have to worry about this cooldown, and you just have this kind of random extra soul shards to kind of get more agonies up, things like that. Creeping Death makes it a bit hectic because, like I said, basically everything's coming off cooldown faster, you're refreshing faster. I just found that a bit too much for me. Let's talk a bit about stats now. Again, you can see I have very little haste, and I really do think that haste is going to be a very good stat for Warlock, specifically Aff Lock, because again, the more haste you have, the faster ticking your agony is, the more soul shards you would get. Now, when you're multi-dotting and such, I found that you get a lot of soul shards. It's not a problem, basically. So this is definitely a spec that will benefit a lot from multi-dot situations, but on a pure single-target situation, haste will probably help a good bit because I did find myself to be a bit starved for soul shards, so increasing that would be quite nice. Again, Mastery, as you can see, the Mastery does include Siphon Life when you take it. It wasn't there when I didn't have that talent. It is here now, so all your dots get increased, so that's very nice that Mastery does help scale with Siphon Life as well. It's going to help that talent out for sure. So again, the majority of your damage here, again, is going to be dot based. Again, anything that says dot, your mastery is going to increase, so that's going to be quite nice. Crit is just crit, right? And we all know what that is. So this might be a bit controversial, but crit and verse are basically the same thing, right? All crit does is 31% of the time you do 200% damage. Versatility is every time you do 7 increased damage. So again, you can kind of think about these things in the very same way. They just increase the damage of the ability, right? It increases the DPS, the execute damage of the ability. And so it's really going to come down to how much increase do you get per one verse per one crit, right? And because there is no direct crit synergy in Affliction, that'll be an interesting thing to see which scales better. It's going to 100% be down to how these two stats scale, and if when you do the math, which one leads to more damage per point. Now, Versatility also has the hidden benefit of decreasing damage taken, which we can't forget. I'm a Raider, again, I'm a Mythic Raider, and I think oftentimes because we can't see damage reduction on meters, we forget about it. And this is a very, very important ability. Not dying is important, right? Dead DPS does no DPS, so again, I think we need to always remember the value that that actually has. So yeah, those are our stats. Mastery and Haste obviously have direct synergies with the spec. Crit and Versatility is just going to be a scaling thing as far as which one there is going to be better. Alright, so in summary here, this was a spec that at first I was kind of about. I felt like a lot of work for maybe a little bit reward. After tuning and after actually adding in those weak ores, I was like, I could actually do some really good damage here, and it felt engaging, right? When I had the tools that I need to keep up all my dots, it felt rewarding. And so this is a good example where maybe Blizzard needs to do a better job with their UI, because in the stock UI formats, it was really hard to track all my dots and to keep them all up. I needed weak ores, and while I'm a huge fan of weak ores, I would still believe the argument that we shouldn't need them, right? That Blizzard should have a UI that doesn't require you to modify it to be able to do your job, right? To do your DPS here. So this is an example where, again, I would make sure I got weak ores, I would make sure I got my UI set, because it definitely helped my overall DPS. And I wish that wasn't the case. Overall, I think that the talent choice is good. Like, for me, what I'm looking for, because again, I don't care about damage right now, is do the choices change my gameplay, right? I want varied gameplay. I want the ability to pick different talents depending on how I play. I would love it if, for example, in the 30 row, all 3 talents did within 1% DPS. And then you could just choose. Do you want another dot? Do you want to have to never refresh corruption? Or you do want a more powerful agony? Right, and you could just choose which one you wanted. It didn't matter which one was better or worse, but in general, that they were about even. There's no reason why that couldn't be the case. Right, now again, there's always going to be those fringe cases, like again, AoE cleaving, things like that. But yet, again, I would think in general, I think they could find a way to kind of balance these across. And that would be nice, because I would like the choices that are not necessarily about what's the most DPS, because we all know at the end of the day we're just going to pick the talent that gives us the most DPS. And it'd be nice if instead it was like, hey, they're all within 1% of each other, pick the one that you play or enjoy playing the most. And I think that Aff Lock has that ability. There are a lot of talent choices that do change your gameplay. Do you want a random chance with Soul Conduit, or do you want the known ability of increasing your haste? Or do you want to play all hectic and refresh your dots all the time? Right? That's a very big gameplay change. And again, it'd be nice if it wasn't, I picked the one that does most DPS, but I picked the one that I enjoy playing. Now, we all know that won't be the case, so everyone will find which one is 0.01% better and just go with it, which is a shame. But again, it would be nice if they were at least close enough that somebody could make that choice and not suffer, right? And not be way behind on DPS because of that. And I think that Aff Lock is one of the first specs that I've seen that has those kind of choices. That the choices are not just different versions of the same thing, but really different ways of playing the spec. And I really did like and enjoy that. So those are my thoughts on Affliction Warlock. Again, I would love to hear what you think. What talents do you like? What talents do you not like? What stats do you think that Aff Lock will be going for? Do you think it's going to be Haze Mastery? Do you think it's going to be Crit Verse? Who knows? I would love to hear all those thoughts. Please go ahead and put those down in the comments. I love your feedback. I love having discussions going on. If you liked what I had to say, go ahead and give me a like. If you dislike what I said or disagree with what I said, go ahead and give me a dislike. Maybe try to subscribe. I'm going to be doing a lot of videos. My next two videos will both be Warlock, so I'm going to be doing Demonology and Destruction next. I already have videos up on Rogue and Hunter on the channel. I'm going to be doing a Rogue summary video in a little bit if you want a shorter 10-minute summary of all Rogue specs. So again, subscribe, like, dislike, comment down below, and I will be seeing you all in the next video.